Welcome to 12 Days of Law Firm Growth, the show for law firm owners who are serious about growing their business, maximizing profits, and reaching their true potential. And now, let's get started. Hi.
Hi. Oh, I'm supposed to do the intro. So, welcome to 12 Days of Law Firm Growth. This is just our gift. We just want to share and give you some resources to help you grow your law firm. We decided to do this as sort of a seasonal, just something to give back to the legal industry, to the community, to help lawyers grow law firms. I'll introduce myself in a few minutes. You probably don't really care who I am until you know what's in it for you. And I'm going to ask Delisi to first tell us what's in it for you before we even bother to introduce ourselves, so you can decide if you want to tune into the show, maybe tell a friend, or go do something else. Delisi, what is the what's in it for them? Let's start off with that.
So today is day 2, and our topic is how to protect and defend your standards. And how can you do that if you don't have a realistic grasp on what they are in the first place? And so this clip today is for everyone who has a messy office desk, or your paralegal has a messy office desk, or associate attorney has a messy office desk. This is for you.
So what is the benefit? If I'm the owner of a law firm, what's the payoff to me of watching the next however many minutes of this clip? And then I'll explain where this all came from and who I am and who Delisi is, and and all of that.
So the benefit to that is realizing when your standards are maybe too high, maybe they're too low, or maybe people are just walking all over your standards. And how does that impact you personally? And then also the success of your law firm.
Yeah. So in the song, Carly says, "So your staff doesn't eat you alive."
Yeah,
And she
because
might as
they
well
will.
have also said, "So your clients don't eat you alive," because our goals are what we aspire to. Our standards are really end up being how we live. Goals are like up here, standards are the floor down here. That's what we fall down to, our standards. We aspire to reach up to our goals and our aspirations, but we end up falling down to our standards. So anyway, my name is R. John Robbins. I'm the founder and president of How to Manage a Small Law Firm. How to Manage a Small Law Firm manages over 600 of some of the fastest growing, most profitable, most successful law firms that you can probably ever hope to meet or imagine. I am a lawyer. I went to law school. I learned all the same things in law school that most other lawyers learned about the business of running a law firm, which is I learned nothing, except if they had just taught me nothing, they had just taught you nothing about the business of running a law firm, that actually might have been an advantage, because what they have taught most lawyers is the idea that just be a good lawyer and the magic law firm management owls will just show up and take care of your marketing for you. Just be a good lawyer, and the magic law firm management owls will bring prospective new clients who will want to hire you because you're such a great lawyer. Just be a good law firm, just be a good lawyer, and you'll naturally attract great staff who will be able to read your mind and develop their own processes and policies and systems and procedures, so they can put out a consistent, reliable work product for you. And just be a good lawyer, and the magic law firm management owls will take care of all the financial controls for your business too. And the problem, of course, is that being a great lawyer it is what you need to get a job working for a well-run law firm, but it's not what you need to do to create a well-run law firm. And so there's lawyers all over the country who are running struggling law firms, and they're really filled with guilt and fear of and shame to admit to anyone that I have problems with the business of my law firm, because after all, if I was a good enough lawyer, I shouldn't have these practical real world business management problems. Anyway, so long story short, I had my own law firm. It was a disaster. I discovered the Florida bar has a department called the Law Office Management Assistance Service. I called them for help. Long story short, they ended up recruiting me. Spent 4 years at the Florida bar as a small law firm management advisor. teaching literally thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of lawyers about every aspect of starting, marketing, managing, buying, selling, growing a law firm, and ended up creating the business that I have back in. I created this business back in 20 in 2009. I was going to say 2019, 2009. Created the business. We launched How to Manage a Small Law Firm back in 2009. And today it is we are the largest provider of, we manage more solo and small law firms than anyone else on the planet. Over 600 of some of the fastest growing, most successful firms with revenues ranging from $30 million down to brand new startups and everything in between. Anyway, so that's me. And Delisi is my personal chief of staff. So we got the How to Manage Small Law Firm business with 150 full-time employees. And then we got Team Arjan that does all my little projects like this podcast and whatnot. And Delisi is my chief of staff. But Delisi also is a very experienced law firm growth. Why don't you just explain your background and all of that? And then we'll get to the clip. And then we'll talk about the clip. And then we'll take everyone's questions about the clip.
Yes. So I quite literally grew up in a law firm. My father is a lawyer and has owned his law firm since I was born. Fun fact we shared yesterday, he actually became a lawyer the day I was born. So he always knows how long he's been a practicing lawyer. I am the result of the children who have parents who are law firm owners. So I can tell you all the things that you're doing right now, how it'll impact your kids if you have kids. In addition to that, I actually was working with a 7-figure law firm out of Texas that practiced nationwide as their director of marketing and business development. And I helped grow that firm to a healthy 8-figure firm. And I'm very proud of that. And launched
I think it's important to say healthy because there's a lot of 8-figure firms. There are a lot of 8-figure firms that are not healthy businesses. They might have 8 figures of top line gross revenue, but their financials are a shit show. And it's important that when someone's standing around bragging about how big their law firm is, you're like, well, but is it profitable?
Yes. So you came out with the book Profit First for Lawyers recently, and I'm sure in the chat we can put a link to anyone who hasn't already read that book. There was a page in that book that talked about contingency fee law firms, which I came from a personal injury law firm, and you talked about the reports you should be doing to figure out cash flow in the business. It was like a light bulb moment where I thought, oh my God, I probably could have helped our firm become more profitable if I ran that report every time I was projecting cases coming in and projecting cases settling. So I'd say all of that to just share with everyone. If you work at a contingency fee firm, I still recommend you all read Profit First for Lawyers because there's something in it for you too.
Contingency law firms are some of the easiest law firms to project revenue for, which I know personal injury lawyers hate it when I tell them that. It's kind of crazy. They hate when I tell them how simple it is to predict the revenue of their firm. It's kind of like, you're telling me my life could be so much better and I could have so much less stress and I could have so much more profit. Fuck you for telling me I've been doing it wrong this whole time. But it's true. So the premise of the show goes like this, everyone. It's the 12 days of law firm growth, like the 12 days of Christmas. On the first day of Christmas, my true love gave to me, right? On the first day of law firm growth, my friends at How to Manage gave to me. And so every day, I've asked my team to just grab something from the vault, their favorite practical, profitable law firm management growth lifestyle of a successful law firm owner lesson, whatever they want. And we'll play a little game where I will try to guess when and where the clip was shot. Then we'll play the clip for you to watch. I'll see it too for the first time. Yesterday, we pulled a clip from 2013 that I hadn't seen in, a long time. And then we'll talk about it. and take your questions about the clip or anything else that you want to talk about, that you need help with the marketing, management, sales, growth, financial controls, figuring out how to make your law firm more profitable, figuring out how to get your law firm to work for you, so you can step away from the firm, whatever. Anyway, so Lisi, why don't we take a look at the clip?
Yeah. Do you want me to tease it and then you can try and guess where this is from first?
Yeah, let's take a look.
Hey, Jennifer. All right.
All right.
Looks similar.
That looks like me with early pandemic hair. So I'm guessing early 2020. Because by mid 2020, it was totally out of control. That's obviously here in my library at my house. That's as close as I can get.
You're kind of close. So this is actually a clip from January of 2022, and it is a session you did with our lawyers who are part of Practical Profitable Mindset. And if you want to tell everyone kind of what that is very quickly, and then we can share the clip. But it's 2022. Yeah.
Okay. I guess I carried my pandemic hair longer than I
Yeah, I
thought.
was gonna say,
You should have seen the pandemic hair. The pandemic hair was like
Oh,
out
I
of control.
saw it. I saw it. You look like Albert Einstein.
It was crazy. So Practical Profitable Mindset Program. It's a mindset program. We call it the Practical Profitable Mindset Program. We have a couple hundred of our law firm owners who we have talk every day at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We've been having this meeting every single day, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard, since January 1st, 2022. Every single morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sometimes it's me, sometimes one of different people on my team, but we run this call. It's amazing. It's life-changing. Anyway, I don't want to try to sell Practical Profitable
Nope.
Mindset.
We should play this clip. I'm
Play
excited for it.
On the second day of Christmas, my friends at How to Manage a Small Law Firm taught me how to protect and defend my standards before my staff eats me alive, and a practical working definition of whether my law firm is successful or not.
This week, I want to talk about standards. What are your standards? Let's talk about what you want your standards to be, and let's then take inventory of the various aspects of our lives and business to recognize where we are living up to our standards and where we are not yet living up to our standards. And then you can decide if you really want those to be your standards or not. And if you don't want those to be your standards, then that's fine. But then you can stop beating yourself up, about not living up to your standards. Remember, our goals are what we aspire to. Our dreams are what we strive for. Our ambitions are what we stretch to reach. But our standards dictate how we actually live in reality, in a practical matter, day by day. So what are your standards? What are your standards for physical fitness? What are your standards for your appearance? What are your standards for clothing? What are your standards for your housing? What are your standards for the state of your physical files? What are your standards for your environment in terms of orderliness and organization? What are your standards for your staff's performance? This is going to be very challenging this week to take inventory of this, because to do so, you first have to do something that most people don't do, which is actually define the standards in objective terms. That's the exercise for this week. We've got to get clear on where we, as a very practical matter, We're going to define what we want our standards to be. And then we are going to take inventory of those areas of our life and measure them against our stated standards. And then we'll know where we need to either lower our standards or raise our standards or change our standards or do something about the way we're living to get into alignment with our standards. And let me just tell everyone before everyone starts jumping off of cliffs and, you know, and just completely losing your shit. I don't live up to my standards in every aspect of my life. I have areas of my life that frustrate me because I don't live up to my standards. I mention this because a lot of people do not have any frustration about certain parts of their life precisely because they've never actually pulled back the curtain, peeled back the surface, opened up the hood, and looked at this the way that I'm asking you to look at this. So I'm curious, why did you pick that clip? Because I don't think that I would have picked that clip. But what about that resonated with you?
So actually, I didn't personally pick it. The team did. We
All right.
went through a bunch of clicks, so we had many people who voted on that clip. And it's because if you actually listen to the whole thing, it will piss people off, but it will
Oh, it
help you.
pissed everyone. It pissed a lot of people. What do you mean that's not my standard? My standards are that I'm a great parent and my standards is that I spend time with my kids. Well, show me in your calendar where you're spending time with your children. You can't, which means that's not your. See, people confuse their goals with their standards. They confuse their aspirations with their standards, and it really messes with your head, right? But
Well,
your
what's the
standards
difference?
is your
Can you
standards
tell,
mean. Sorry.
can you tell me what the difference is? What is the difference between your standards and your goals?
Standards are the minimum that you'll take, the minimum that you'll tolerate. What's the minimum? Okay. How dirty does your car have to get before you say, I can't stand it anymore? I got to clean the car. It's got to get cleaned. One speck of dirt, two
No.
specks of dirt, three
It
specks of
happens
dirt.
as soon as I hear one of my daughter's toys, like in the cup holder when I'm driving, I hear and I just want to scream. That's my standard. When I hear that, I'm done.
Okay, well,
Lose it.
that's the lowest you'll go.
Hmm.
That's your minimum. That's the least you'll take, right?
Yes.
When it drops below that level, you have to take action,
Yes.
right? So, for example, in my business, right? If we have less than, I'm trying to think of a good example. I didn't know this was the clip you were going to teach, or that this is the clip you're going to share. Okay,
Well,
let's talk about calendar. Let's talk about
yeah.
calendar, right?
Well, tell me about the calendar. And then also, I use the example of a messy desk because you use the example of a messy car, but I think about lawyers who have really messy desks all over. And
Right.
it's
So
a
they've got a desk.
then,
They got a desk covered with crap. You
yes,
can't even see the surface of the desk. They got piles everywhere. Which, by the way, that's me. That's how I work.
I know.
But so to say that I've got this, my standards are that I won't tolerate anything less than a clean, organized desk. It's obviously not true. Anytime you look at my desk, it's not clean, it's not organized. That's not my standard, right? The thing is that I'm honest with myself about what my standards are. I'm honest with myself about what my financial standards are. I'm honest with myself about my health standards. I'm honest with myself about my business standards, right? There's certain areas of my life where I have much higher standards than in other areas of my life, because I'm like a person, like a real person, right? So like if If I don't have at least the next 12 months scheduled and planned out for my business, I'm really uncomfortable. And I get so uncomfortable that I take action because it falls below my standards or is beginning to reach the limit of my standards, and that forces me to do something about it, right? If my business uh this year, if there was a, I don't want to date this recording, so I don't want to talk specifics, but like, I guess I will. So this year will gross 29, maybe $30 million. That means that if we're doing less than $2 to $2.5 million a month, like, that's very, very problematic for me, right? My standards used to be much, 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 much lower than that, right? The reason why we have a $30 million business today, and I had a $10 million business a few years ago, and I had a $5 million business a few years before that, and a $1 million business before that, and a $500,000 business before that. And the reason I was broke and struggling before that, it has every single thing to do with my standards. My standards was that I was willing to put up with and tolerate and deal with the inconveniences of being broke. I raised my standards, and because I raised my standards and I wouldn't tolerate less, I raised my revenue up to $500,000. And then I raised my standards and I wouldn't tolerate anything less than $1 million. And sure enough, I started taking action and produced $1 million and 5 million, 10 million, 20 million, 30 million. Why don't I have a $50 million business yet? The answer is I haven't raised my standards to say that I am not willing to tolerate anything less than a $50 million business yet. I'm in the process of doing the personal growth and the personal development to raise my standard, to make that my minimum standard. And as soon as I do, boom, I'll stop tolerating anything that's not consistent with that. And I promise everyone watching this is really how $10 million, $20 million, $30 million, this is how eight-figure, eight-figure law firms get built. I promise you, this is the most important part of the entire. I've built more million and multi-million dollar and $10 million law firms than anyone else alive on the planet today. There isn't even anyone who pretends to have built more $1 million and multi-million dollar law firms than me. Even our competitors acknowledge that I've done this longer and done more. And I'm telling you, this is it. It's raise your standards and don't tolerate anything less than, and you'll get it.
So I want to tap into that experience for a second, because if I am a law firm owner watching this and I have a $250,000 law firm, how often should I be thinking about what are my standards if I want to increase my revenue and become a $500,000 law firm? Should I be doing this quarterly? Should I be doing this yearly? Does it matter how big my firm is and how often I should be doing that?
Look, if you wanted, and don't worry about why you might want it, but Felicia, if you wanted to become an alcoholic, do you believe that if you really set your mind to it, you could become an alcoholic?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Well, what would you do every morning if you decided, I want to become an alcoholic?
I would drink alcohol.
You'd wake up in the morning, you'd drink alcohol, right?
Hmm.
And then what would you do in the afternoon?
Drink alcohol again.
Probably drink some alcohol. And what would you probably eat for lunch?
Probably nothing, because I'm just going to drink alcohol.
Or you'd eat something really greasy because, it helps your stomach not burn when you drink too much alcohol. So you'd probably eat something really greasy and unhealthy, right?
Yes.
And what do you think you would do that night? You think you'd have like a loving relationship at home if you've been drinking alcohol all day? or you probably come home and be neglectful and, surly and, have an unhappy home life.
The latter. It would be
And
horrible.
then what would you do next? And then if you were making every single decision consistent with the goal of I'm going to become an alcoholic. I am an alcoholic, and I'm going to make every single decision consistent with becoming and remaining an alcoholic. You have no doubt you could become an alcoholic probably pretty quickly, right?
Yep.
You simply have to make every single decision that's the same decision that an alcoholic would make. And you could become an alcoholic, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, it works in the other way. It works in reverse. It works in both directions, right? You want to have $1 million law firm. Well, what would the owner of $1 million law firm do first thing tomorrow morning? Drink alcohol?
No,
What do you think they
definitely
would do?
not.
What would the owner of $1 million law firm do tomorrow morning?
I would say work out.
They probably, well,
Get their mind right. Get their
then
blood flowing so
then
they can
do
make good
something to get
decisions.
your mind right. Then
Yeah.
fine. Then that's it, right? By the way, there's some owners of $1 million and multi-million dollar law firms who start the morning working out and getting their mind right. And there's some owners of $1 million and multi-million dollar law firms that start their morning in a different way. There isn't like one right way or one wrong way to do it. The point is you decide what would the owner of $1 million law firm do, and assuming that you are correct about what the owner of $1 million law firm would do, if you just do that, so you would work out. Great. Then what would you do? I can help anyone
Probably
build a $1
drive
million
to the
law
office.
firm. I can help anyone build a $1 million law firm in 90 days or less. And some people have taken me up on this and they do it. Unfortunately, most people they don't even believe that it's possible, and so they don't even try it, which is kind of sad. But this is it. This is how you do it.
Okay.
So you would wake up, you'd work out. What would you do next?
Go to the office and then meet with my assistant to go over my
How
day.
would you get to the office?
I would drive my luxury car.
Okay. Well then, do you have a luxury car?
Yes.
Okay. So you drive to the office. And then what would you do if you're not an attorney, so we're playing a hypothetical, right? But if I was talking to an attorney, we'd say, great, then what would you do what would the owner of $1 million law firm do when they get to the office? What do you think the first thing they would do when they get to the office?
Go into their office and meet with their executive assistant or their PLA.
Professional legal administrator. Right. Okay. And then I say, and what did you do? And they say, well, I got to the office and the first thing I did was I jumped in and did legal work. Well, then you were doing the things that the owner of $1 million law firm does right up until 9:30 in the morning, and then you stop being the owner of $1 million law firm, and that's why you don't have a million or a multi-million dollar law firm. If you
Is
keep
that
doing,
is that because they did something case related? Like the owner of $1 million law firm shouldn't be in production anymore?
I don't think that there are. I mean, I know hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of our members are multi-million dollar law firm owners,
Hmm.
million and multi-million dollar law firm owners.
Yeah.
And most of them are very self-aware and intentional about the highest and best uses of their time. And the highest and best uses of your time when you have a $5 million, $10 million law firm usually is not practicing law. Now, does that mean you can't practice law? No, you get to practice law whenever you want to practice law. But when you're practicing law, let's say you're generating $1,000 an hour, right?
Hmm.
Well, $1,000 an hour times 1,000 hours a year is $1 million in revenue. All right. If you can generate $1,000 an hour for 1,000 hours a year, congratulations, you have $1 million law firm. but it's not like you're going to it's not like you're going to generate $1,000 an hour for 5,000 hours a year, or $1,000 an hour for 10,000 hours a year. There's just not enough time, which
Yeah.
means you have to start leveraging, right? You have to develop processes and policies and systems and procedures, and you have to develop a machine that you can plug in great lawyers into, and you leverage them into. So if you built this machine that's giving you $1 million of total owner benefits, which is probably a 4 or 5, $3-4 million law firm in most practice areas. You got to generate $3 or $4 million a year, so you yourself personally can take out $1 million in total owner benefits. You're probably not waking up every day and going into the office and practicing law first thing. You're practicing law maybe as a reward to yourself. You're practicing law to keep your skills sharp. You're practicing law maybe as a training strategy for your attorneys. You're practicing law maybe to help build the reputation that you're using for marketing purposes, right? But practicing law isn't the most profitable thing to do with your time if you're the owner of a multi-million-dollar law firm. The most profitable thing to do with your time and your focus and your energy and your attention and your priorities is working on the business, which I know sounds like a cliche, work on the business instead of in the business, but it's true.
Well, thank you. I want to take a second to ask a couple of questions that are coming in. We are streaming this on
This goes
Facebook.
back to why I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just want to connect up to something we said before.
Mhm.
This is why you see so many 8-figure million, 10 million, 12 million, 15, $20 million law firms that are not profitable, right? Because the owners of those firms, they have a $10 million minimum standard of revenue and marketing and work production. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe they have a $5 million standard for their
Oh.
financial controls and their financial literacy and their attention to financial details. Maybe they have a 5 million, right? So their profit standards are out of alignment with their gross revenue standards. And that's how you wind up with a $10 million law firm that isn't very profitable, or maybe isn't profitable at all.
That makes sense. That makes total sense.
See
Um,
it a lot.
it is.
Yeah.
We actually have, if we can put it up on the screen, a resource if anyone wants to go through that process of thinking through what does success look like for you in defining it, and then also what are your standards, because the only way you can defend and protect your standards, which is our theme today, is identifying what they are. And that's really the first step, and it's an important part of growing your business, and then also identifying where your standards aren't being met. I think you told me one day something like, Delisi, whatever you tolerate ends up becoming your standard. So what are you tolerating? And that was really impactful to me, because I never thought about it like that. I thought about, oh, I'll have standards, but I never flipped it and thought, well, whatever I'm tolerating that doesn't meet or exceed my standards means I've now
No,
lowered
no,
standards.
that's not, whatever you tolerate is your standards.
Mm-hmm.
That is the definition of your standards. If you want someone to define your standards or identify your standards, I say, what's the worst thing you're tolerating in your life? That's your standards, right? If you're driving around in some piece of shit old car and you're tolerating that, well, then that's your standard for driving a car. If you are being, mistreated by your staff and lied to by your staff, and your staff isn't performing a great job, well, and you put up with it, that's your standard for staff. If your clients don't pay you and you keep working for them and you put up with that, well, then that's your standards for accounts receivables, and that's your standards for getting paid. Whatever you put up with, whatever you tolerate, whatever shit you take, that is by definition your standards. And people don't like this because it forces them to get very, very honest with themselves. So the resource there, which is free, everyone can take advantage of it. Download the business plan. It's a business plan. It's a sample business plan. You own a business. The business you own is a law firm. You are an entrepreneur and you own a business, and you wouldn't expect any other kind of a business to run well without there being a business plan. Why should you expect a law firm to run well? Why should you expect a business that is a restaurant to run well if the owner of the business that is a restaurant doesn't have a marketing plan, doesn't have a sales plan, doesn't have recipes, doesn't have processes and procedures, doesn't have financial controls? You wouldn't. Why should you expect a business that happens to be a law firm to run well if the owner's standards are such that they're willing to tolerate and put up with the problems that are the inevitable consequence of not having any plan for how the business is supposed to run, thought through and in writing. So you can download that for free. Download the business plan at howtomanageasmalllawfirm.com/12 days, because this is the 12 days of law firm growth where we're going to help you grow your law firm. And we want to share that business plan resource with you. Just look, you don't have to send it to me. You don't have to share it with me. You're welcome to send it to me or share it with me if you like to, but you don't have to. Just doing the exercise, I promise you, it will show you where you can make improvements in your business, which will make improvements in your life. And I hope you do it, because it's your life. It's the only life you got. You're not going to get another one, I don't think. I don't know. I'm sure Lynn McLean might disagree with me, but I'm not sure you will. So make the best out of this one. Make a business plan. Make a better business. Have a better life. Did you say we have questions?
Yes. So I have some questions. I can't pull them up on the screen because they're coming. Oh, there it is. All right. First question. Is there ever a situation where it's okay to lower your standards? If so, when?
There's no such thing as lowering your standards. Whatever
Really?
you put up with, that is your standards.
What if I come up with my standards and I'm like, whoa, my standards were way too high?
They
That's
weren't
not.
your standards. They weren't your whatever your worst thing you put up with, that is by definition your standards. This is the part that no one likes to understand.
Yeah.
Gandhi, who by the way was a struggling solo lawyer at one time in his life, has a saying, and his saying was, our actions express our priorities, right? You can say your children are your priority. You can say that having a healthy lifestyle is your priority. You can say that having a healthy marriage is your priority. You can say that doing amazing work for your clients is a priority. You can say that having a successful business is a priority. Let's see what you actually do, right? Because your actions are going to tell us what your priorities really are. What you put up with is going to tell us what your standards really are. So what you're really asking in the question is it ever okay to intentionally decide to put up with more bullshit? Sure.
Okay, I want to challenge you on that a little bit. Let's say my standard was okay, every morning I want my paralegal to have coffee on my desk, my calendar printed out in front of me, and a pile of all the cases I need to review for the day. And you
That's
thought,
your
well,
standard.
yeah,
Okay.
okay. And then you start to implement your standard and see that if you do that, a whole bunch of other stuff doesn't get done. Your paralegal doesn't get to the office on time because they're stopping at Starbucks to get your coffee.
So you're willing to put up with that.
Maybe you're not
The
willing.
paralegal, you either willing to put up with it, or you fire the paralegal, or you tell the paralegal that I'm not going to put up with this, and the paralegal improves the paralegal's performance. This is very, very simple. This is extremely simple. It's just really, really hard for most people to wrap their head around, which is why most people don't do this, which is why there's so many people who have struggling law firms instead of much more successful law firms. Look, you work pretty closely with me. You know who I am. You know what I'm really about. You see me on my good days. You see me on my bad days. You
All
see
I-
like the real me, right?
Yeah.
I get a lot of criticism. All you got to do is look at Glassdoor. I get a lot of criticism from a lot of people because I'm simply not willing to put up with their bullshit. My standards are what my standards are. I'm not willing to put up with anything that is below my standards because the minute I put up with something that's below my standards, what I've done is I've lowered my standards. And so, there's all kinds of employees who want, well, I couldn't show up on time and get your coffee at the same time. Well, you could have. You simply made a series of choices that prevented you from doing so. So now someone has to decide. I have to decide now who is going to suffer for this, you or me. And I don't want to suffer for your choices. So look, back in 2011, I don't know if I've told you this story. If I told you the story, stop me. Unless you think it's interesting for the podcast, and then let me go.
Okay.
Back in 2011, I started the national CLE tour with Microsoft and LexisNexis. I was broke. I was broke back in 2010. I got on the national CLE speaking tour. I started going around the country teaching lawyers about the business of running a law firm. I had already had a really great history of teaching lawyers about the business of running a law firm, built thousands and thousands and thousands of very successful law firms. But I didn't I didn't follow my own advice because I had lower standards. And anyway, long story short, I spent the year of 2011 just on the road. And Allie, my wife, Allie and I said, you know what? We were planning to take the last 2 weeks of 2011 off and just give ourselves a break. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think
Instead,
a lot of people do that.
Sorry?
I think a lot of people do that.
Yeah. Well, instead, I ended up working 10 hours a day, every single day, Saturdays and Sundays, Christmas, New Year's, and New Year's Day included, because I couldn't take a break. And the reason I couldn't take a break is because I had given all my breaks away throughout the year. I gave away a break on January 1st. I gave away a break on January 2nd. I gave away a break on January 3rd. I kept giving my breaks away. Got to the end of the year. I had no breaks left. Didn't get to take a break because I gave all my breaks away. You follow what I'm saying?
I was going to say, help me connect. For some reason, when you say that, I'm thinking of Give Me a Break, and I'm singing the Kit Kat song, but I know that's not where you're going. When you say give me a break and you gave your breaks away, are you talking about like someone didn't do something and you just gave them a break? Like, hey, you know what?
Yes, that's exactly what I mean. The Kit Kat song. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly what I'm referring to. Give me a break. Well, I couldn't get to work on time today because blah, 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 blah. Okay, you know what? I'll give you a break. I'm not going to fire you. I'm not going to give you a hard time. I'll give you a break. You couldn't get to work today on time. That's okay. The next day, well, I couldn't get the work done on time and I missed a deadline. Okay, well, I'm not going to fire you. I'm not going to give you a hard time. I'll give you a break. Well, I got the work done on time, but it was filled with mistakes. And, here's the reasons why, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I'll give you a break. I'm not going to fire you. I'm not going to come down hard on you. I'll give you a break. Well, you keep doing that. That basically what I'm saying is I'm willing to keep lowering my standards and lowering my standards and lowering my standards to give you a break.
Yeah.
I'm paying you to do things that are up to my standards. You do things that are below my standards. I give you a break or I fire you. And what most people do is they give a break, give a break, give a break, give a break, give a break. And if you're not careful, you get to the end of the year, you got no breaks left. When you're sitting there in the office on the weekend while your kids are at home crying and your spouse is complaining that you're not around because you gave breaks to your employees who didn't do the job when and how they should have done the job, and now you're in the office cleaning up the mess after them, you gave away your breaks because you lowered your standards. And now you're being eaten alive by your staff.
Yes, this sounds like the conversation I had with you. I don't remember when it was. It was the last week or two.
It was like an hour and a half ago. That was a conversation we had an hour and a half ago.
We're not going to talk about that conversation. But what we will talk about is there is a situation where we had some screw up on your calendar, and we live and die by that calendar. I mean, that sets the tone for your priorities, where you're focusing your time. And we had some issues, and you reminded me, and you're like, Delisi, this is because you gave a break to X person who's no longer with the business, and you're still seeing it now. And I thought about how many breaks did I give that person before I realized, okay, they're not a right fit. So if I'm hearing you, at what point do you say, okay, that's enough breaks? You are not meeting or exceeding my standards. Is there like a trial period before you say, okay, that's enough?
I can't answer that question. Look, I know that what you, I know that everyone wants like a flippant answer, but right, it's very circumstance dependent, right? You have look.
I feel like it goes back to onboarding. You know, how long is your
That's
onboarding
exactly
process?
what I was about to say. You know, if you're doing a proper job of onboarding an employee, like in How to Manage a Small Law Firm, we do 7 weeks of onboarding for our management advisors. Our management advisors, we hire amazing people with amazing credentials. We do weeks of interviews, and then after we hire them, we do 40 hours a week of training, 7 weeks of training before we give them any substantive work to do. There isn't a single position within How to Manage a Small Law Firm that they're allowed to start doing any actual work with less than 2 weeks of training, because I want to invest in making people successful. But what I also want to do is I want to buy the right to demand that people live up to our standards.
Yeah.
Because I'm not willing to lower the standards. Now, look, you're also looking for long-term relationships with employees. You're dealing with human beings who have families, and you know every single person has something in their family going on at any given moment. Every single person you know has something going on in some part of their family that is horrifying and tragic and distracting, right? And you have to have some empathy. They're human beings, right? But you've got standards, and if you're clear about what your standards are, and you're clear with them about what your standards are, and you give them the tools and the training and the resources and the space to live up to your standards, and they don't live up to your standards, well, then you have a choice to make. Are you going to lower your standards to accommodate them, or are they going to change their behavior to live up to your standards, or you have to go separate ways?
I think you almost entirely answered another question we had come in right now. It's almost like you were reading their minds. We had a question that came in, and they asked, is there an effective way to base performance reviews around standards? If so, how could I practically implement this in my law firm?
Well, yeah, I mean, that is what a job description is. A proper job description, it's a series of standards. This is what key performance indicators are. It's a series of standards. So when we talk about engineering a role to be profitable, you say, if the job is done this way, and if the job is done to these standards, the end result should be these key performance indicators should be met. And so when you sit and do a quarterly performance review and an annual business review, you do a quarterly check-in and an annual review. And you say, look, every quarter you're checking in, and showing the person their performance against their standard with the key performance indicators, with basically their scoreboard, their scorecard.
Yeah.
I can't read the question because the font is too small and I'm not wearing
No,
my glasses.
that was it. That was the question. And I like that you said using the scorecard because that is practical and it helps you, as the person who manages your team. I have to just nerd out for a second. It's so important for us to document every conversation like that. So if you do have to put your employee on a performance improvement plan, you have all of those things to revert back to and say, remember, we talked about this in April and we said we were going to do this, this, and this, and we haven't. So I like that scorecard. We're going to have to, for the next episode, find a way to share that because I know we have that as a resource somewhere that we can share with everyone. Maybe it'll help them too to have, a templated scorecard for them to use for their employee performance reviews. And I know a lot of people are doing that right now in December. We actually had a debate about this, I think yesterday or today. How often do you do these reviews with your employees? Do you do them annually? Do you do them quarterly? Are they tied to merit-based bonus increases? We had this discussion just the other day.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is, look, when you have clear job descriptions and you are clear about your standards and you have clear key performance indicators, it allows you to be very brutal with the problem, but kind with the person, right? It doesn't become personal. It's not, you're doing this, you're doing that, you suck, you did a terrible job. It's, look, I like you as a person, I respect you as a person, I want you as a person to be successful. Let's talk about, this is the job that we agreed that you were going to do. These are the standards that we agreed that we would use to evaluate the performance on the job. These are the key performance indicators that we agreed that we would use to track and measure. And these are the results we're getting. Now, do you agree with these results? Are these accurate? Did we measure this correctly? Did we measure it incorrectly? No, that's correct. That's true. That's valid. Those are real numbers. Okay. We need to talk about how your behavior has to change in order to improve these key performance indicators. Otherwise, you're going to have to leave. And you can be really, really, really direct, clinical even, and it doesn't have to be personal. You don't make it personal, right? And this is a big part of the reason why so many struggling law firm owners are struggling, is because they don't have these tools. They don't put these tools in place for themselves. And so they dread having these kinds of conversations because it's nothing but personal.
Yeah, I worked for a lawyer who didn't like to have those uncomfortable conversations because they felt like it was personal, but it shouldn't be, and it's not. It's all
It
about
doesn't have to
business.
be. It doesn't
Yeah,
have to be
it does
personal.
not. Yeah. Well,
Any
any
other
final
questions?
thoughts? No, we're done. So any final thoughts before we tease what tomorrow's episode will be?
I don't know what. So just so everyone knows,
Oh,
I
that's
don't
true.
know
You
what
know
they.
the song. You don't know
What?
the clip. You know the song, but you don't know the clip.
Right. I don't know the clip. I don't know what they picked, but I do know the song. I know the lines of the song, and I don't remember the lines of the song. So why don't we hear the third verse?
On the third day of Christmas, my friends at How to Manage a Small Law Firm taught me the difference between strategy and tactics.
We talk about this every single day when we're discussing projects we work on. So I think it'll be a very lively conversation.
All right. So let's hear the song, and then we're out.
All right.
On the third day of Christmas, my friends at How to Manage a Small Law Firm taught me the difference between strategy and tactics, how to defend my standards, and a practical working definition of whether my law firm is successful or not.